So my story starts with a bunch of spatulas, or really just with one spatula, and I want to start by telling you that story because it's the story that I tell every day when I talk about this brand and now kind of what I do every day with it. So there's a bunch of spatulas lying around. These are for you to take home, by the way, so pick your favorite color. Don't fight over them. There's more in the back. If you don't like pink and you got pink, then go find something else. I broke a spatula. It was not a spatula that looked like this, but it was a spatula that looked like probably all of the other ones that existed at the time. It had a wooden handle. It had a silicone blade because that was not that new of a thing. And I looked at Brian, my husband and business partner, who's sitting right there, and I was just like, why don't they make these out of one piece? Like, why? The wooden part was so crappy, excuse my French, but it was like bent and broken. It had been burned on the stove. And the silicone part was perfectly fine. This was like a 10-year-old spatula. So there's like pristine silicone and then this kind of, really aged and worn down handle. And I pulled it apart and there was goop on the inside. And that was like, oh God, I've been cooking with this thing for months or for years. And it's so goopy. So solving that problem became a little bit of an obsession for me. And it was very much just born in that moment. But from there, I just went and found all of these pieces that came together 5 years later as a line of products that are like all made in this way, like really nice silicone, fun colors. We have a whole second company that we sort of accidentally started. It's a smart coffee grinder that I can tell you about later. But it just kind of starts with that seed, and that seed becomes a story. And I tell that story every day, just like I told it to you guys when I talk about all of the rest of our products. And this is just going to stay behind me as it is. There's nothing else to look at. It's not going to change. I built a prototype spatula. I built it out of like Sculpey. And then I molded that thing out of silicone. And then I was like, okay, this concept works. Like validation for self, check. And then I thought, oh, I like this so much. I'm going to go make it out of like food safe silicone and give it as Christmas gifts to my whole family. So I started calling factories. I'm like, hi, I'm Sam. I'd like to make a silicone spatula. It's all in one piece. And I'd like to make 10 of them, please. And like everybody just laughed because of course you can't make 10 of a thing when you're going to make a thing. You have to make, and here's the punchline, you have to make 10,000. You can't just make 10. You can make 10,000 though. And that brought me back around to crowdfunding. So I was a little bit of, I guess like an early adopter on the Kickstarter platform. I'd had a couple of friends who'd done publishing projects there really early on. And so it was sort of in the back of my head as a place I could go to get something built if I simultaneously wanted to validate that idea in the marketplace and start to tell that brand story. And that's what we did. And that one spatula sort of begat a bunch of backer requests for other stuff. And those backer requests for other stuff became real. And then stores started requesting things and we had ideas of our own. And now there's like this full line of silicone cooking utensils that you see in front of you. And I think the thing that is so unique and amazing about crowdfunding as a platform is that it allows you to make that storytelling moment the very first thing you do for the world when you're getting your product or your idea, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be an artistic endeavor, but you really have an opportunity for storytelling. And if you reach a type of success that you may or may not want, but the type of success that I wanted was like mass market adoption of this thing. And I wanted to grow and I wanted to be in stores and I kind of had this vision for how to build a brand around amazing and fun and well-made kitchen tools. Like that was my passionate kind of inspiration for the whole thing. Getting to tell that story and practicing telling that story to a group of people who are really engaged in your success because they are literally backing you is so valuable because it's what you're going to have to do for the rest of the lifetime of that product. So we recently this year, just to give you some sort of context of where we started and where we've come to, that one product turned into about 40 different cooking products so far, like kitchen tools. And this year we got into Target, so we made it. And in that meeting, yeah, I was like so it was a long path to get there, and you have to tell your story to every single gatekeeper along the way. And there's a lot of gatekeepers. Like, you want to get into Sally's kitchen store around the corner, you've got to tell her your story. You want to get into Target, you've got to go and tell that story. In our case, we had to tell that story like 5 times because there's a lot of buyer attrition. So every time we went to have a meeting, well, one time, the first time I went to meet with them, the buyer sat down and she's like, I just want to let you know, tomorrow's my last day. Really? I flew to Minnesota for this in the middle of winter. But there's attrition, but also that means like you have the privilege and also the burden of like telling this story over and over again. So to this day, we continue to launch our products to crowdfunding and on Kickstarter in particular. And one of the reasons that we still like to do that, even though frankly it's not in the strictest sense of the phrase necessary or the word necessary. Like, we could launch a product without the backing of a crowd. But that would take away from us the opportunity to tell the story about that product. And that is, for us, what is so precious and what we keep coming back to. So every time we launch a new product, and I don't foresee this changing, we bring it to the crowd first. And not only do we get to tell our story, but also a lot of people get to become a part of that story. And we find that to be a really virtuous circle. And there's also a sense of sort of pride of backership around the whole thing, and that people get to be a part of our fun journey of like making stuff in a way that's not necessarily the easiest way or the most obvious way or the fastest way to market, but like a really wonderful way to bring people into a sense of familiarity and ownership around what we do. So, with that, I sort of, and I want to open this to questions, but I can keep vamping for, if there aren't any questions, I'll just keep vamping until someone tells me to shut up. With that, it's sort of, I guess the biggest element of my story that I want to share is that storytelling nugget that starts in crowdfunding and is so wonderfully fostered there can carry you through to mass market adoption, and kind of must carry you through to mass market adoption. So it's not so much that crowdfunding is only for little ideas or little things or something that you must keep like small or personal. It's a gateway to really, really big relationships with a ton of people who like deserve to have your thing or experience your art or hear whatever it is you have to say, and it really is kind of part of a virtuous circle. So BackerKit for us, and I'm obliged, not only because we're here, but because it's such a big part of our story of success, to kind of share the piece of success that it represents for us, was so important in that effort because it really facilitated, let me jump back for a second and say, like, no one, I don't think, starts a crowdfunding project just like wanting to do logistics. No one's like, oh, I have a great idea, but let me figure out the logistics of it first. Like, you're in it to do that creative thing that you want to do and to make your thing. And what success looks like oftentimes is pulling you away from that initial creative effort, because there's the whole other portion of things, which is just like getting it into people's hands. And that is filled with friction and challenges, and there's answers out there, but they're not always easily found. And having BackerKit a part of the process for us means that we can really minimize that friction, as much as possible. It doesn't mean we can eliminate it. Although if you have a product for that, I'm a buyer. But it really minimizes it, and it allows us to stay really close to the thing that wakes us up in the morning, which is just like making this stuff and then seeing, kind of, this is a little bit kitschy, but like seeing the smiles on people's faces when they have it. Like, it's really fulfilling to see people using your stuff. That's what it's all about. And And the shorter we can make that trip for everybody, and the less painful we can make it, the more we've been successful at that mission. So BackerKit is a huge facilitator of that process for us. I think in some ways, our company in particular, and our projects in particular, add a special je ne sais quoi of complexity to the whole thing, because we have a lot of products in a lot of colors, and we tend to fulfill things at multiple times. Doing that sort of thing, quick, fast operations like that, in the absence of a platform that can smooth over the stuff that isn't quite as crazy complicated, but still is kind of a thorn in your side, would just be impossible. So thank you to everyone at BackerKit for just like making it possible for us to give these spatulas to more people. It's a totally underestimated portion of the overall experience. You start with that cool idea, and then you're like, wait a second, everybody liked this. Wait a second, and success can become a really scary thing, because you're like, thousands of people are waiting for this. What do I do? Anyway, all kind of lessons learned along the way. But having done a campaign without BackerKit, and that was for like one product in 13 colors, I would never do it a different way again, because now we're looking at 40 products in like 13 colors.